Hello you guys, I'm Lisa, and today I'm going to demonstrate how I load a quilt onto my Nolting quilting frame. I had a message from Paul on Facebook. They recently got a Tin Lizzy quilting machine. Yay! And they had questions on how to easily put a quilt onto their frame. And although I'm sure our frames are not the same, the overall dynamics and setup and procedures are going to be about the same. So I'm hoping this video helps you guys out. Again, I am loading onto a Nolting frame. I have a Nolting Pro Series quilting machine. The first thing I did when I got my machine and my frame is I went and I measured all of my bars and marked the exact center with a permanent marker. Some frames come with the measurements already on your leaders. Mine did not. So I found the center and marked it with a permanent marker. We're going to go ahead and load the quilt back onto our frame. The first thing I suggest you do is for both your back and your quilt top, find the center at the top and bottom of your quilt. Just pull the edges together, pull your quilt out until you find your center and mark it with a pin. Do this for both the bottom and the top of your quilt, for both the back and the quilt top. All right, I went ahead and marked mine with a pin. At this point, all you do to start is to find your pin and your center mark on your bar, and you can either pin that in place, or I have the little grips with the plastic bar in mine, and see my little grips. I just grip that in place. So the pin is lined up with the permanent marker on my bar. I take my second grip and extend the quilt back out nice and flat and smooth. I'm not tugging really tight. And I come back to this side and I do exactly the same thing. Now up front where I am, I'm loading the back on this bottom bar. This top bar will be for the quilt top, okay? All right, I have those little pieces in place, and now I can come in with my longer ones and just clamp everything down securely. If you're using pins, you would pin everything right in place. But you can see how fast of a process this is with these grips. All right, I have my second one. And I'm just pushing that down. It's catching all of my quilt in between that grip and the little plastic bar that slides through there. And I have my quilt backing loaded to this bottom bar. I'm going to swing you around. At this point, I go ahead and clamp the top of my quilt to this top bar, and then we'll roll everything up. I'll be right back. All right, I am at the back of my machine now, and I'm going to go ahead and find the center mark with my pin. And match it up to the center mark on the back bar. And take my little grippy and grip that in place. And then we are extending, just like we did on the front bar, the quilt back on both sides. Making sure everything is nice and smooth and straight. And I forgot to grab my little long ones. Oh me, it's been a long day, you guys. Alright, I have my long ones, and I'm just going to clamp these into place. I would say these clamps were a good, solid investment. I bought them at the same time that I bought my machine, and this pack was about $100, if I remember correctly. And I think there are several different brands that you can purchase, but they save a ton of time when you are loading quilts. And just like that, our quilt bag is attached to our back bar. Alright, I'm back at the front of my machine. The bag has been attached to the front bar, at the bottom bar, and it's been attached to the back bar. At this point, I'm going to bring my quilt backing and just have it drape towards the front of the machine. And keep in mind, this is just how I have found that works best for me. You can find tons and tons of videos on YouTube, and everyone might do it slightly different. This is just how I load my quilts, okay? But I have the whole quilt just draped, or the backing just draped towards the front. And now I'm going to start rolling all of my backing onto this front bar. Now what I like to do is to make sure everything doesn't start going towards one way or another, is I like to smooth everything out as I go along. Just make sure that there's no ripples up underneath of there. Make sure everything stays straight. Smoothing out as I go. I am using a fleece backing, so it is a lot of give and cushion to this backing. So there we go. Our quilt back is loaded, and we are ready to go ahead and load our quilt top. Alright, I have my quilt top marked with this pin at the top and at the bottom, just marking the center, and I'm ready to go ahead and load it to this top bar. Now, like I mentioned before, there's tons of different ways to go about doing this. Some people actually float their tops. I like to go ahead and roll mine up on this top bar just to make sure that everything stays exactly where it's supposed to stay, and it only takes a few minutes to roll up your top. If you have a top bar for your quilt top, I do recommend using it, especially if you're just starting out and learning how to load your quilts. You're going to want to make sure everything stays exactly where you need it to be before you start getting into floating your quilt top. For the quilt top, This will be the pretty side or the right side up, loaded onto your bar, where the quilt backing was loaded pretty side or face side down. Okay, so this will be face up. We'll match the center to our center mark on our top bar. Again, if you're using pins, you will pin this. Throughout each one of these stages, you're going to want to make sure that everything is fairly straight. The straighter everything is loaded onto your frame, the better the results you're going to have in the quilting process. Okay, so it might take a few minutes to load your quilt, but try your best to make sure that everything is lined up nice and straight. All right. We're ready to go ahead. Oh, hey, my little long ones. The little grips just help keep everything in place while you are putting on your longer ones. You can see, just like that, we have attached our quilt top to the bar, so that was fairly quick. Now we are just rolling our top onto the bar. Again, you're going to want to keep adjusting and making sure everything stays straight. And we are just rolling that up. I do, just like the quilt backing, I like to go through and make sure everything stays nice and flat and smooth. For some reason, if I grab my quilt here, it takes the tension off. If I just start rolling everything up, everything wants to shift one way. It could just be my quilting frame, or maybe everyone has that issue. I have no idea. But I learned that if I hold the quilt here, it helps balance everything out. And really, you're just making sure that everything stays nice and straight as you roll it up. And just like that. Sometimes I'll take a pin and just pin this for now while I load the batting onto the frame, and this doesn't keep falling and getting in my way. Once you have the backing and your quilt top loaded, it's time to go ahead and lay down your batting. I like to lay down my batting nice and flat. I have everything tucked up underneath my machine so I'm not stepping on it as I'm working on my quilts. I like to go ahead and take a basting stitch and do a straight line to secure the batting, but also give me a good straight foundation to pin my top down. So let's go ahead and do that. and I just go straight across the quilt. And just like that, I have a nice straight line to secure my quilt top to, and so that just ensures that everything flows nice and straight. We're going to start very straight. I did have my channel locks on during that process. If you don't have channel locks on your frame or your machine, I would maybe measure certain points down, and so you know you're hitting that mark and staying straight across. That might help you to do a completely straight line across and give you a guide to pin your quilt top to. All right, so at this point I take my pin out of my top and let this drape. I'm going to loosen the bar just a little bit and give myself some room. I think you can see that quilting line. This is what we are pinning our quilt top to, and I have the center of my quilt, and I can see where my center line is still marked on this top bar. I align both the center to the center right on that quilted line, and I just start pinning. Just like that, we've pinned our quilt top to that quilted line, and now we're just going to roll up any extra that I pulled off of the bar onto the bar, and we can lower this back down. Everything is nice and smooth, and we're ready to go ahead and start quilting this quilt. I hope this video answers some of your questions, you guys. If you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section underneath this video, or you can hop on over to Facebook. I'll put a link to my Facebook account in the description box, and you can send me a message or some pictures if you have questions, and it might be easier to send a photo of what you're doing. I would love to help you guys. Believe me, when I first started with my Longarm, it was not easy. I loaded the same quilt maybe 10 times before I understood what I was doing, and each time I had a new quilt on my machine, it went smoother and smoother until finally loading a quilt on this frame is just like second nature. And I know that you will get to that point too, so keep on going, watch this video, comment, like, and subscribe, you guys. Thanks again for watching.